Hi, I'm Matt Roberts with D1 Ticker and AthleticDirectorU here at the 2019 NCAA Convention. Pleased to be joined by South Carolina Athletic Director Ray Tanner. He of the 6 years of leadership now.
You're 7, I mean.
You're 7.
You missed a year.
I did miss a year. I was snowed under by all the baseball success, and then you got off to the start with the athletic director. And I haven't seen you in many videos like this before, so I didn't know if you were still out there.
Well, I think this is the first time I've been in this type of video, but I understand the fee is quite high, so I'm glad to be with you today.
We're off to a wonderful start. We'll keep it right down the middle of the road, I'm sure. It is January. You and I talk about this a bit offline, but I'm always curious. Is your internal clock still baseball oriented? And are you thinking about, now that we're in mid-January, I want to go see some individual workouts? And is that still part of who you are as a human being?
Well, it really isn't. I think my first year out, I was a little fidgety. I left the field in 2012. So that next year was a little more difficult, especially when the weather was really good. And I'm in a meeting and I'm thinking, meeting, sunshine, fungos, batting practice. But after that, I settled in, and as you know, these jobs are quite busy, so you're going from one thing to the next. So I like going to the games. I like going to softball games and being, in the middle of basketball season here. That's going pretty well for the Gamecocks in the SEC, both men and women. So I'm kind of focused on what we're doing, but when we start playing, I guess, day after Valentine's Day, I'll be out to see them.
Does that mean you don't have to make a conscious effort to separate yourself from Coach Kingston's program and offering him any advice? I know that's probably a common question you get, but again, I wonder if it's part of your DNA and how you treat your presence around specifically the baseball program, given your history there.
I probably have kept my distance more from the baseball program than any other program, just because of my background. Now, I support them, and I'm at the games, and Coach Kingston, will call me probably more often than he needs to, just to check in, and I'll ask what's going on, how the team's doing. But I stay out of the way. I think that that's just the way I feel about things. That I don't need to be over there, and I'll go watch him play. And sometimes he'll ask me a few questions, but it's friendly dialogue, and he's a great coach.
Do you do his end of year annual review?
Yes.
Do you find that potentially you're more critical of a baseball coach than others?
Well, probably. I'm still a coach.
Right.
I have that AD title, but I'm a coach that wears a necktie more than I used to. That explains it a little bit? So coaching is hard. There's a lot of ups and downs and pitfalls and challenges and emotions, and certainly athletic directors have the same thing. I don't think it's quite as difficult as it is to be a coach. So I understand. I think I understand all of our sports and what they go through, the age of their teams, the challenges, the injuries that they experience, and how you navigate a season. So I tend to favor my coaches and understand the process.
Mm-hmm. Let's stick with the state of baseball kind of in the SEC, and there's some serious money being invested on the facility side of those programs. And off the top, Kentucky just spent $52 million, I think, on a new facility. Arkansas is going to do mid-20s for some hits, a hitting facility out in right field. Florida's obviously going to spend a bunch for a brand new stadium here soon as well. I want to ask, though, what are the challenges for the sport of baseball, especially in the SEC and at a very high level, to continue this momentum that we've seen for a number of years? CWS TV ratings are up, attendance numbers in Omaha are up, general fandom and interest of using those two metrics as a gauge show continued popularity. But what are the challenges still out there for the sport of college baseball specifically?
Well, I think the challenges are that, you're demanded to invest in your program if you want to be successful. The SEC, for a long time has been successful. And now there's been even more money spent on coaches and on facilities. And, we have a beautiful stadium in Founders Park. You mentioned Kentucky's. I had a chance to go visit Kentucky's when we were over playing football this fall. I've been to Arkansas last spring. I think it's exciting, because I was back in the day when, you had a team, you rode vans, and I don't think anybody's riding vans around anymore. You got charter flights and great stadiums and attendance and some programs that might not be making a lot of money, but they're offsetting their expenditure. So it's a great game. You see, young student athletes leaving the diamond, and in a couple of years or less, they're in the big leagues. That's the quality of baseball in the SEC, but also nationally. There's so many great programs, and from my background, I think it's great to see where athletic directors and presidents are so engaged in that sport that many years ago it was football and basketball and the others. And I don't think that's the case anymore. I mean, every sport counts, and we're trying to invest in all of our sports. But baseball is enjoying a great era right now.
I don't want to dig in on any specific issues too much, but I am curious, given what you mentioned taking vans to games, and now we're talking about does it need to be a third full-time paid assistant. Now that you sit in the athletic director chair and you have a more firm perspective and grasp on what adding a third full-time, full-paid assistant in baseball would do from a balance standpoint, financial standpoint, do you have an opinion on that specific topic?
Well, I think we should go in that direction, and I guess the vote's going to probably be in April. It's also for softball, but I think, when you refer to your other coach in baseball or softball as the volunteer coach,
they're doing way more than what that.
Volunteer, they work harder than the guys that are getting paid more money. I mean, they're not volunteer coaches, and I think that needs to be erased. And it is our vehicle to develop young coaches. Now, you work full time if you're a volunteer coach, but you can't go on the road. You can't go across town to watch a kid play. But if it is passed, you can do that. Does that mean you have to pay them six figures or you have to pay them anything? No, it doesn't. You can decide that as a school. But it'll give that coach a chance to be a real coach where he can recruit and go take trips and evaluate players, and you get rid of that stigma. I don't like the word volunteer because they're far from being volunteers.
Maybe it's just the natural evolution of the business of college baseball?
I think so. Keep in mind, we're not adding a position. We're not going to go with a full-time coach and add the volunteer back. You're just going to get rid of that moniker that it's a volunteer. It's going to be another coach like it is now, except you'll have the same opportunities that the other coaches do. But it gives us a chance to develop young coaches. Currently, that does not exist.
And the detractors would say, you just said, well, you don't have to pay them six figures, but that'll become another point of competition between programs. And if I'm at Ole Miss and I can pay my third assistant $80,000 and the head coach at Mississippi Valley State, who I think has great inroads in the states, making $50,000, that's a talent competitive drain issue potentially.
Well, I've heard some ADs say, you know what, I really don't want to add another position. I don't want to continue to put our budget in a position that is escalating. It's escalating. Well, you don't have to. You don't even have to pay them, but you can change the rules of the position to allow them to be a coach that can recruit. And if you don't want to pay them, you don't have to, but it still gives them an opportunity to be that full-time coach.
Sure. Let's go back to the point you made, and you said, I'm still a coach, I just wear a necktie more often, sit behind a desk or something to that effect. Have your personal core values changed from leading a baseball program for so long and now leading an athletic department?
No, I don't think so at all. I think that I'm sort of in the same place I always was. Is the delivery different now than it used to be? I would say that might be close to 100% different. It's I'm a lot less emotional. Coaches are emotional, especially when they're teaching, but I think the core values are still there. It's about doing the right thing every day, working extremely hard, and taking care of your people and let them know that they're important to what you're doing, and we all come together. Together everyone does accomplish more.
Yeah, the delivery aspect is interesting there. Furthering on that point, what about the idea of as you continue to understand, and you've mentioned this to me off camera, I'm super busy. And your administrative assistant has to chase you down to get you to sign contracts. A bit of a joke probably, but you're a busy guy. ADs have very demanding jobs, but you still say, as you did earlier, coaching's harder than being an AD. So compare those two, measure those two statements for me.
Well, there's a bunch of ADs out in the hallway that would not want me to say that, but a lot of those people in the hallway have not been coaches. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter what sport it is, coaching is hard. It is very emotional. I think a lot of coaches feel responsible when they lose. A lot of coaches wear it all the time. It's it's not level too much. AD jobs are hard. I mean, you're trying to balance a budget. You're trying to win at football. It's very important that you do that. You're trying to satisfy your fan base. You're trying to raise money. You're trying to do a lot of things. So I'm not minimizing the AD role by any means, but coaching is hard. It's very difficult, and people love you when you win and not so much when you're losing. It's just the way it is, and I respect that, and I think that, having been a coach, that the coaches at my university, they say he gets that part. Now, when I start talking budget, they're like, hey, I need a little bit more. Oh, yeah. And I'm like, we got you. You can figure it out.
Have you found more baseball coaches around the nation have come to you, and you and John Cohen, obviously both in the league, are notable guys who were super successful on the diamond and now are in the AD chair. Are there more baseball coaches coming to you and saying, hey, coach, I'm kind of maybe interested in that. What's it really like?
I have received a few calls, and I kidded Tim Corbin a few times, but before Vandy named an AD, I said, hey, come on, join us. Let's go. Let's try to get a majority in the room. But I think that, I come from a background, I love sports. And, like a lot of kids, I played everything in high school, and I've been fortunate enough that I've stayed in sports my entire life. I love the environment. I thought early on in my career that I would be a better administrator than I would be a coach. I did think that. And I was really intrigued by how it all comes together and where the money comes from and how you manage so many sports and the people and compliance. And I was able to get back in. I ended up coaching for 25 years. Could I have done a few more? I think I could have. But the opportunity to be in administration at the University of South Carolina was great, and I love it as much as I did coaching baseball.
Now that you're on year 7 as an AD, is there a specific situation, decision, development that you can look back on now and go, I was green behind the ears. I should have made a different call. I didn't analyze that right.
I think that maybe it's not like all ADs, but having been a coach, you second guess yourself some. So I think there's been a lot of days that I maybe second guess something at night when I reflect back on decisions that were made. But I will also defer to my team, my senior staff, that I have great people around me, that I don't leave myself on an island, that I vet things out and I care what people think. And I'm not interested in doing what I want to do. I want to do what is right. And I got great people that I think we come up with a good consensus all the time. I'll tell you this, that it was in my first year. I was at a dinner one night and Coach Gene Stallings was there. We ended up at the same table. And he said, hey, I hear you're going to become an administrator. And I said, yes, sir, that's where I'm headed. He said, let me give you some advice. And I said, I would love that. He said, go to practice. And I said, Coach, explain that. He said, you need to spend time at practice. You'll go to games. You'll go watch your teams play. But go to as many practices as you can go to. And reflecting back now, I haven't been to practices as much as I would like. I think the job gets in the way sometimes. There's too many meetings and too many things to do, and donor visits that you need to make and places you have to go. I mean, NCAA convention, NACDA, where I see you from time to time. That's one of my New Year's resolutions, that I'm going to be at more practices. He says it's so important to the student athlete. They know you support them, and they know that you're going to try to come see them play. But seeing you in practice is a big deal to young players. And that's one thing. If you said, what's your number one regret in your 7 years? I didn't attend enough practices, but I'm going to do better.
Interesting. Let's close with this. I'm thinking of some of the staffs you had, Coach Myers, Coach Holbrook, the head coach of that other school that you play in state sometimes, who used to be on
Monty Lay. I don't remember the school, but yes.
What I'm getting at is the way you all collectively made a decision, and clearly I'm from a baseball background as well, and I'm familiar with the banter that goes on the team and even between coaches and difficult decisions and the passion that's involved in some of those decisions sometimes. How would you analog that with how you all make decisions now on senior staff and the passion debate that could occur there? And you mentioned how great of a team you have. So I'm just curious about how those two kind of match up as well.
I think it's similar. I think it parallels because, going back to my coaching days, we used to get together and try to decide what was best for our team and who was going to play and who we were going to bring in and what we were going to do and how we were going to approach the game. And we would banter for hours in trying to come up with the best solution or put ourselves in the best position that we could possibly do. And I think, the senior staff that we have, they, I always kid them that I don't like meetings, and a lot of times our senior staff meetings are 3 hours, and they're looking at me like, you're the guy that didn't like long meetings. But I love to hear the input. I love to hear the dialogue and what they're thinking.
Are you the type to always play devil's advocate no matter what's said, just to stoke things?
No. I want to get it right, and if I think something, somebody can say something, and I'll flip. Because I'm not stuck. I'm not stuck on how it should go. I'm more concerned that we do what's best for our student athletes, and that's a big deal. Student athletes first, coaches are second, and the rest of us serve those first two. And I think that's the way it has to be if you're in college athletics.
Good stuff. Well, dare I call it a boondoggle that we finally got you to sit down?
I don't, it's funny because I see my colleagues and my friends in the SEC, and they're always on TV, they're doing interviews, they're doing boondoggles, and I think this is the first one I've ever done. I'm not sure I'm going to do another one, but I've enjoyed the time with you.
You can keep it a one-outlet shop. We're fine with that, and all your peers in the SEC are good friends of ours too. So
maybe I could be a moderator when you get those guys together.
You are welcome to sit in this chair anytime. Thanks, Coach.
Good to see you.
Appreciate it.